What's up, guys? Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be covering some more about Adobe Spark. This one's a little bit different than, again, focusing on print on demand, which is what most of our videos have been covering. Last week, actually, we did one that was kind of out of the ordinary, talking about how we make a little flyer or an insert for some packaging. And this one's going to be something similar. I'm getting questions on how to use Adobe Spark for other things outside of print on demand, so don't want to leave anybody out, and I love answering questions and helping you guys solve some of the problems that you're having. So even if it's not 100% related to print on demand, I definitely love showing off this tool and what is possible with it. So we're here again inside of Adobe Spark, and today we're going to be focusing on the YouTube thumbnails that we can create with this program. So there's actually two ways to do this, because Adobe Spark is made for social media and they count YouTube as a social media. You can see here they actually have kind of a pre-made thing for YouTube thumbnails. So you can click on that and use this template, but in case you guys did want to start from scratch, I wanted to show how you could do that as well. And that's usually the way that I'm making my thumbnails, because I have kind of a unique way that I'm making my thumbnails. I don't necessarily just want to be using, whatever template they already have created for me. So the way that I start is going up here to start from scratch, and we're going to go ahead and select graphic. And from this point, we can actually, instead of going to custom like most of our things and typing the exact pixels, you can go to popular. And again, YouTube thumbnail is something that this program is actually made for. So it's a good thing to keep in mind that the sizing is already here, which is really nice. So you can go ahead and click on that and hit next. And then again, it's going to bring us to this image selection area, where if you have something in mind that you're making a thumbnail for, if it's a travel vlog or something that you'd want an image from, you can start with an image here. But again, for 99% of my projects, I go ahead and skip, because we can always access these photos later when we're kind of ready to add a background or have a better idea of what we're creating. But just like creating a design for print on demand, this is no different. We want to remove this ad kind of the first thing so we don't forget to do it later. This Adobe Spark ad here at the bottom. So we go ahead and click on it, remove once. It's going to ask us, do we want to sign up? You can either hit this little X up here or get started, and it will bring us right back to our artboard so we can start editing this the way we want. So I think every thumbnail for your videos on YouTube should be different. You probably just don't want to create one and use this for every video you have on YouTube, but I think keeping some parts similar will help your audience and people on YouTube know which videos are yours and which videos aren't yours, which I think is important. If they're enjoying your content, if they want to be able to click on the next video, I think making a thumbnail that's easy to identify, which videos are yours and which aren't, is super helpful. It's kind of like the first thing that we're going to see is that thumbnail, so you want to make something in here or some elements of this thumbnail stay the same. So one way I've been doing this recently, and something I actually think I'll continue doing because it's working pretty well, is adding our image to this bottom left-hand corner over here, either our logo or some kind of icon that represents your brand or the types of videos that you're making. I definitely think that helps. The reason I like this left-hand corner is because there's nothing here when you hover over the thumbnail. On the right-hand side is actually like the timestamp. It tells you how long the video is, so you don't want to put anything over here. And sometimes in these other areas, there can be like things that pop up when you hover over them. But this bottom left-hand corner usually stays pretty clean. So regardless if they're hovering over it or not, YouTube's not going to add something that's going to block our image over here on the left-hand side. And because I want that logo to really pop, I usually add some type of shape behind it to make sure that the color is consistent. So usually most of my thumbnails are some type of imagery in the background, which we can find an image, and I will upload that a little bit later. But for right now, I want to make sure that I can create a shape that's going to fit here, put my logo over that shape, so that this bottom left-hand corner is where my audience can look to see, if that video is from me or not. So the way I'm going to start doing that is go up here to add. I'm going to go to icon, and I'm going to type in, we can do a circle. I think usually I use some type of triangle or a square, but just to change it up a little bit, I'll type circle, pick a circle that I like, and go ahead and drop that in the bottom left-hand corner, just like that. So the way I'm going to go ahead and add our logo on top of that is go up here to add. We're going to go to photo, and we're going to upload a photo from our computer, which is going to bring up this little file finder, and we're going to just locate one of these logos. So it'll be the old logo that I used to use for everything, which was this wing. But once we upload that, and because, again, like one of my old videos showed off, it's a .png with a transparent background, we'll be able to maneuver this pretty easily and position this exactly where we want it to be. So I'm going to go ahead and drag it, make it a little bit smaller, and add that right here. And you can see it kind of snapped in place there, letting us know that we are perfectly aligned. I'll actually make this circle just a little bit smaller and align that wing once again, because I think that's a good size. And I'm mostly just eyeballing this. This is definitely something you can test out. Make one, upload it to your video, see how you like it, and then come back in here and make changes fairly quickly and just align things slightly differently. So the next thing I'm going to do now is actually add that background image. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the background here, make sure that's selected. Go to image, find a free photo, and I mostly just use Unsplash. I've just worked with them more and know their library a little bit more. But let's type in cars. It's not usually something we're talking about, but it is something I'm interested in. So if we type in car and see what type of images pop up from Unsplash, then we can go ahead and select one of those and manipulate it a little bit more once we have it in our artboard. Now that some of these images have populated over here, I actually really like this Mercedes, so I'm going to go ahead and click that, and it's going to bring it right into our document here, or our artboard rather, so we can see how this is going to look. If we click inside of here, we can actually scale this up if we wanted to make it bigger, or rotate it if we want to do some funky angles with it. But usually the thing that I'm doing first, there's actually two things that I'm usually doing when I'm going ahead and add a photo in here. Usually I want to darken this a little bit, so I'll go to filters and darken, and what that means is that our text is going to pop a little bit more, and it's going to be a little bit easier to see what our text will look like. I'm not going to use this text exactly how it is, but just getting an idea, I usually do darken that image in the background so it's not quite so vibrant. The next thing that I like to do is actually going to our layout and adding a border. That way, it just makes it look a little bit more uniform, which I like. And usually I make that border color white because that is, unless you're using the dark mode of YouTube, white just looks good on the background, and it makes your logo look like it's popping off a little bit more, which I like. So that's usually the two things I'm doing to images, and now we can talk about text. Usually I don't have any shape, but you definitely could have some types of shape on there. So I'm just going in here, finding a nice thick font that's again going to pop. That's something that I'm definitely focused on when making these thumbnails. I want the text on this video to be easy to be read at whatever size this thumbnail will be, knowing that thumbnails are usually pretty small. So I want to make sure that I'm picking a nice and big font, whether that means we have to, make it bold, but somehow making sure that the people who are scrolling over the video or see it on their, suggested videos or whatever, can actually see what's going on here. So I like that font. I do not like this color at all, so I'm going to actually switch that to white. Again, keeping in mind that I want it to be easy to be read and easy to see what's going on here, so keeping that text white is nice. Or sometimes you could do yellow if you can pull a color from the background image, which I think is nice. And again, that's right here in these suggested colors, because they are actually sampling the colors in this document. You can see there's this gray in here, but I'll keep this one for white now. Kind of again sticking to this KISS, is keep it simple, stupid. Not trying to add too many colors or overdo it is usually the way that I'm creating thumbnails now. I know there are other people who might think otherwise, but for the types of videos that we're creating, which is a little bit more educational focused and not entertainment, I usually like to keep it, pretty upfront of what we're getting after, so people can easily read and see what's going on here. So that's kind of the basis of how I'm creating my thumbnails here in Spark. Like I said, pretty quick and easy way of doing it. Keeping this template definitely helps. Then you can go back in and change out this background image for whatever you want. So if we clicked on that image, and then we can just switch this out for whatever we want, and there we go. We have kind of the way that we would set up our next video without having to recreate this every time that we do a new thumbnail. Something else that I'd like to add is you can actually put a picture of someone's face in here, usually your own face if that's the information you're talking about, but having a human face on these thumbnails does actually increase click-through rate, so that's something to keep in mind. And a way that you can add another image to this document without, getting super fancy and cutting someone out on Photoshop and, adding them in as a PNG with a transparent background, what you can do is actually change the layout of this document by going back into our layout tab here, and then you can just add, another area for a picture here, and then you can add, a picture of yourself and not make it darkened and then put the text just solely over the image that you want to be darkened so that you can actually see that text. Again, we can change that back to white. And then I'll just go ahead and add an image from Unsplash here. So I go ahead and select that. I'll just type in person and see, oops, I'll type in person and see if we can't get somebody. So this guy, if this was us and we wanted to have our own face in here, then we can go to filters and take that darken off on just this right hand side. And then again, we can go in here and mess around with this a little bit, but that's much easier than going into Photoshop or having someone cut out a picture. Just a nice way to split up so people can see who is making this video and the type of content. And so there is some flexibility here with changing how the ratio of these two photos, and again, just making sure that everything's nice and easy to see for people. So now they'll know exactly what your video is talking about, who is saying it, and the brand or the channel that it's coming from, which is really nice, without interfering with any of this stuff YouTube is going to add on top of this thumbnail. So that's my quick tutorial for those of you out there wondering how you can make high quality competitive thumbnails inside of Adobe Spark. Hope you guys have a good one. I'll see you next time.